This luscious, lust-loving ego is leading the charge for lust resonance everywheres, and that ego is Garden of Thorns Gregor. Garden of Thorns Gregor is a Waw level ego. It has a 20 plus 10 as a roll, which is fairly alright for most egos, but for Waws, I'd say it's fairly low. It has a slash damage type, and an attack weight of 4 at its base. Now, here's where the fun stuff starts. Before attack, gain highest number of resins, attack weight, -2, to the max of 3. So, if you have your entire board is filled with, like, lust, you will be gaining 3 attack weight at max. On use, apply 1 corresponding sin affinity damage up, and 1 corresponding sin affinity power up to 4 plus number of highest resin allies. 4 plus corresponding resonance, apply 1 additional corresponding sin affinity damage up. At +5, apply 1 corresponding sin affinity power up, and at +6, apply the above next turn. Now, after attack, heal 4 allies with the lowest HP percentages for 22% of their max HP, which is really good. And you heal highest number of resins to attract 2 more allies to a maximum of 3. So, to break down the kit of this ego, you get resonance, and if you have high enough resonance, you gain more AoE. If you have high enough resonance, you give your allies attack up and damage up for their resonance, and you heal more allies if you have resonance. So this ego is all about resonance. Now, the passive is Crown of Roses. Start turn, inflict 2 rupture potency on random enemies. In focus encounters, that's all parts. When activating absolute resonance, inflict 2 rupture on all enemies at the combat. That's pretty good. That's very good. And honestly, there's kind of a trend I'm noticing. You have Fey Lantern inflicting rupture, and you had AEDD that also inflicted rupture in its own way through the discharge. What was it? Electrical discharge, something like that. But yeah, a lot of Gregor's, every ego he has, other than Ledger Domain, inflicts rupture in some sort of way. And I think that's pretty cool. Now, as for most Vovs, this ego costs 30 sanity to use, and its cost is 2 wrath, 2 lust, 2 envy, 2 sloth, 2 gloom, 2 gluttony, 2 pride, which is, I get it because the Sign of Roses, it had that gimmick where it made different flowers for all your sin types, but it's really just a bad mixture, right? Because it's not easy to fuel unless you have like mirror dungeons, you have Baby in a Flask or Pursuance. Other than that, if you're running an actual team, you're very unlikely to get this off, which is sad, but that's the case with most Vovs, I suppose. This will change to that of fatal to wrath, ineffective to lust, normal to sloth, fatal to gluttony, normal to gloom, endured to pride, and ineffective to envy, which is fairly good. You're fatal to 2 things, but you're ineffective to 2, and you're endured to 1. And, well, 2 of them are normal, but I think that's pretty good. Now, onto the corrosion. It will become a 30 and -10 coin, which is great, because most of Gregor's egos up until now had a positive coin on corrosion, but this doesn't, which is good, because if you corrode with this, you're not landing heads. Just, let's be honest, you corrode on a Vov, you're not going to land heads. It has a slash damage and attack weight of 4 as its base. It targets randomly if you're corroding into it, and before attack, gain highest resin, subtract 2 attack weight, max of 3, which is the same as it is not corroded. And on hit, you inflict 1 damage down and inflict 2 bind next turn. On hit, inflict 1 fragility and 1 power down of the sin affinity with the highest resonant count. At 4 plus corresponding resonant, inflict an additional corresponding sin affinity fragility. +5 resonant, inflicting another power down. And at +6, apply all the above as well as next turn. Which pretty much is just, instead of buffing your team, it makes the enemies weaker, gives them fragility, and gives them power down. So, pretty good effects, all things considered. Well, I'd say it's time to give a brief synopsis of this ego. So, Garden of Thorns Gregor is an ego with 4 attack rate at the base. It has a fairly decent roll while not corroded, and on corrosion it has a very good roll. Now, this ego, its whole gimmick is gaining lust, not just lust, really any resonance, but lust is what it would benefit from the most. And if you want to do that, you can stick it into a Liu team, is what I would recommend. Because most, if not all, Liu have a lust skill. I mean, hey, Liu Ishmael has a lust skill 1, and I believe Liu Merceau might also. Although it is fairly bad to fuel, having 2 of every sin needed to fuel it, it's honestly, the positives outweigh the negatives there. And its passive, honestly, the passive is really good if you're running a Rupture team, but I don't see much use from this ego in a Rupture team, because most Ruptures don't have many lust skills, if I'm correct. I might be wrong, but I think I'm right. All in all, I'd rate this ego's drip a 9 out of 10. I really like it. I really like the drip. And the corrosion, oh, I love the corrosion. And its strength, on base, it's pretty average, but it really just gets blown away with its corrosion. So I'll give it like a 7. It's nothing insane, right? It's evolved. Obviously, it's going to be great, but it's not bad either. And its usefulness really depends on the team you're running, but if you're running a Liu team, or you have running a team that's somewhat based around this, which I would assume you're doing, even without the running a team around it, you can still use it to fuel a Rupture team, or just heal your allies. Yeah, it can heal them pretty good. So its usefulness, I would rate like 7.5, because it's a lot that it can do. It is a lot. It can buff your allies, it can heal your allies, it can debuff your enemies, and it can fuel Rupture teams, which is amazing. So, yeah, that's about it. See ya.